Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning here. I know some of you are in other time zones. Please type yes if you can hear me, then I'll get going. Okay, we are good to go. Everybody can hear me. Wonderful. I just want to mention to everyone that my little island, Salt Spring, got devastated by a storm a couple of days ago. So please send prayers there. It looks like they're out of power for up to a week. Huge trees down everywhere. It's just a complete mess. So I must admit, I'm feeling pretty blessed to be away right now because my house did not have a wood stove or any other alternative power supplies. So I would be in a big old mess if I was there. But as you can see, I have power. I'm in Sedona. So let's bring Jesus through and see what he has to say for us today. You are blessed beings indeed, and I am that one that you know as Jesus, and your weather troubles around the planet are beginning to get your attention. And so we want you to look at any intense experience related to weather as a little heads up that having alternative systems, having backup systems, having solar panels and batteries or water collection systems or any kind of multi-leveled source of power is a really good idea in these coming years. Many beings have one supply, and that is their hydroelectric system, and they are at the whim and mercy of the companies that run those systems and the governments that run those companies. So you are well served to pay attention to the story that our dear one just mentioned about beings having no power or water for a week. This is quite a lot of, there's a lot of infrastructure within your societies that you would be well served to support, well served to lobby for, and well served to bring into your own homes. We will leave that subject there for now. What we want to talk about today is the new year. We want to talk about the making of resolutions. Of course, every year people make resolutions about eating less, drinking less, exercising more, saving more money, all of these kinds of things. But we want you to understand that to say something and to be able to do something are two different things. If you have been deeply programmed through endless imagery, for example, alcohol consumption in your society is very, very high, and you will notice that there are liquor stores all over the place, and there are liquor stores open late at night. They are designed to be in places where you will go when you are distressed. So they are often next to grocery stores. So if you are having an emotional breakdown at 11 o'clock at night and you decide to head to the late night store, guess what? There's some alcohol available to you there so that you can have two things to numb your feelings. The programming around food and alcohol in your society is immense, and all you have to do is watch a few minutes of your television or a few minutes of your movies or your blockbuster series on Netflix, and you will see a lot of food being consumed and a lot of alcohol being placed front and center in those movie clips. This is so that you are deeply programmed to want to have a drink and to be very likely, even if you don't necessarily believe in the use of alcohol, to resort to that. The human mind is programmed. You are programmed. We want to emphasize this as we go into the new year, because if you do not treat your mind as if it has been deeply programmed with these unhealthy responses to emotion, then you will not be prepared for that programming to arise when you get emotional. So, for example, you have been trained as babies to be given a soother or a sweet drink or a candy to pacify you. And that was done with all the best intentions by your parents when you were little, because you were crying and they only had so much time or resources to allot to you, and getting you quiet again was the most important thing. So for many of you, there is a deeply wired aspect of the physiological and nervous system, reward system in the brain to sweets. This is not your fault, but it is something that you need to be aware of when you make New Year's resolutions. And we are going to suggest some New Year's resolutions here. We are going to suggest that you get more sleep. That means that you might be able to take a nap in the afternoon. If you are retired or self-employed, we want you to lay down for at least half an hour in the middle of the afternoon. 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock is fine. If you want to set an alarm, that's fine. But if you're free to sleep, that is fine. Do that. And we would like you to pay more attention to the natural ebbs and flows of light on your planet. So we would like you to go to bed earlier in the winter, and we would like you to get up earlier in the summer. We would like you to begin to pay attention to the cycles of the moon. We would like you to pay attention to weather systems and even astrological alignments that dictate the energies that are affecting the world. One of the things that this system depends on is your disconnection from nature. And staying up late watching television when it's been dark for 5 or 6 hours, or on your computer for 5 or 6 hours, artificial lights, these kinds of things, these disconnect you from the natural cycles of your planet. And these natural cycles are healthy. The ebb and flow of energy, the hibernation in the wintertime, the excitement of getting up on a beautiful sunny summer morning, listening to the birds, listening to the night noises, perhaps, instead of being on your computer or your phone or whatever it is that humans do these days. We would like you to at times go out on your back deck, and if it's cold, wrap up, put a coat and your boots on and look at the stars. See what's going on up there. These kinds of activities are going to really, really benefit you as you go through the transitions of the next few years with these increasing energies, because those increasing energies are in nature. They are in light, moonlight, sunlight, starlight, and they are not in your technology. Now, one of the questions for today is about technology. Will there be technology on the new earth when these big transitions have transpired? Yes, there will be. There are beings already working on making your internet unassailable. But of course, power is one of the great weak links in that chain. So pay attention to what we said at the beginning of this introduction. Get yourselves sorted out so that you have an alternate power supply. If you want to stay connected, then that is the way to go. What's going to happen in these coming years? Well, you are going to see systems breaking down. And of course, the ego mind panics here. It says, I don't want anything to change. I want to be able to go to the grocery store and buy whatever I want when I feel like it. There are not going to be the kinds of devastation that your ego is telling you about. Your ego is very, very fearful of change. It's very, very fearful of death. And we want you as Course in Miracles students to be aligned with your eternal spiritual nature, which means that you are here to evolve and grow and expand away from fear into love. So anytime you get that little reaction to what we say, that is the part of you that is ego-driven, that is fearful of death. And it's very important that when you feel that fear, because that's the fear that's triggered on newscasts when they say that the economy is dipping or that there might be a World War III, it is the ego's fear of death that you are feeling, and its panic is that shot of adrenaline. Where can we go? What can we do? How do we avoid this? That is the ego's job, to keep your physical body alive, because the ego is only alive when you are in a physical body. It is not who you are. It is the separated self. It is the fearful self. It is the physical self. It is the materialistic self. You must remember this when you get these shocks of fear that the ego is telling you you're entering into a dangerous place. Remember, it's doing its job. So you may say to that part of your mind, it's okay, we're eternal spiritual beings. We don't need to fear death. It is illusory. I am not my body. I am free. I am the mind that is connected to all that is. We do not need to panic. We are going to be given the information we need at the time we need it. We are going to be guided. We are going to be led. We are going to be shown the way. We do not need to panic, and you will feel that fear dissipating. If, however, you listen to that fear, then you will start to panic. You will want to hoard. You will want to react. You will want to go into restriction. What happens when you go into that fear and restriction? You can't hear us. You can't hear the guidance. You're down in the lower physical realms where fear and death rule. Now, when we say death rules, obviously we mean death of the body. Your consciousness never dies. It never has been dead. It never will be dead. And that is an important principle for you to remember. When these shifts and changes happen, it is only going to be the warmongers that pass from this earth. It is only going to be the military-industrial complexes that have destroyed many, many countries in your world. It is only going to be the financial system that's siphoning off your wealth that is going to be changed. You must remember, the devil, you know, is not a very, very kind system, and you are all feeling it. You are all beginning to see what would happen if you all went to the bank at the same day and said, I'd like my money, please? Well, it's not there. Some of you would get it. The first few in line would get it. But those of you that are deeply dependent on these systems are well served to reassess what you are doing with your resources. Again, we do not talk about this to frighten you, but we say, are you smart to be depending on a system that is fragile? Are you smart to be putting all your eggs in that fragile basket that could be destroyed in one day? No, that is not very smart. But this is where we get back to our original principle, which is when you make a New Year's resolution, we would suggest that you reassess where you are putting your energies. Before New Year's Day, we would like you to sit down with in a room where there's no TV on, turn the phone off completely, shut it down so there's no distraction, and write down where you spend your time, write down where you spend your money, write down where you put your savings, write down what you invest in, write these things down and ask yourself, is there a shift that you would be wise to begin to make in this new year? So, for example, you may see that you spend $700 or $800 or $900 a month on eating out. You may decide that that really is not a sound or healthy investment. And you may say, well, we're going to budget for half of that for eating out so that we don't go into deprivation mode, we don't go into panic. But that other $450, we are going to invest in producing healthy food or buying organic food or supporting a local farmer. We are going to spend that money because many of you will say, well, I can't afford to eat organic food, but you will spend to go out to dinner without even thinking about it. And that money could easily be invested in a much healthier diet. That is one area where we would suggest that you make a difference. Don't go all out. Don't go cold turkey, as you say. Go 50-50. See where you are spending. If you have a big old gas guzzling car and you're putting $500 a month in gas in there, some people are, they're spending a huge amount. You may be good to reassess and ask yourself, would I be better served to have an electric vehicle? Would I be better served to not have a dependence on the gas station and to spend that $500 a month on my car payment for an electric car? This is something that is good to ask. And the argument for the programmed Americans or Western beings, of course, is, well, of course, there's not enough distance in an electric car. I can't travel when I want to. Well, we would say, have a look at how often you do that. If you are going on long weekend remote treks every weekend, then perhaps an electric car is not for you. But if you do that once a year, we would say, rent a vehicle that goes that far once a year or twice a year. You would be much better served to have a reliable electric vehicle. And of course, then comes the power grid. And we would say, back to the original, get yourself a battery and some solar power panels and ask yourself, is this smart or is this extravagant? Where is my foolishness lying? Let me be intelligent. You are well-educated beings now. You are well along the path to your spiritual evolution. And not only that, you are well educated in your systems and your societies. So begin on this January 1st to assess honestly what you're doing with your money, where it is, how you're investing it, and where you could make some sound shifts that are going to support you should systems break down. Let us tell you, there are many beings on the little Isle of Salt Spring that are very happy to have water collection systems, composting toilets, and wood stoves today. Very, very happy indeed. There is a leading edge community there that does support alternatives. And those beings that don't have those things on the go regret it, and they may very well be making that assessment voluntarily over the next few weeks. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and any of the things that we tell you on these programs are not for fear-mongering. On the contrary, they are fear-reducing, because once you know that you have a stable system that you are investing in wisely with your wealth, for many of you are quite wealthy, you will have less fear. You will be confident that come a storm, come an economic depression, come a government overthrow, come a revolution of some kind, come 2 or 3 weeks without deliveries, you will be fine. And that will reduce the fear. It will not expand it. Be aware of what the ego is telling you, that disaster is coming, that you are going to be hurt. This is not so, but we do ask you to look at how you live, where you live, what you invest in, and what you spend your time doing. This January, we want you to become more aware of where there are wasteful streams of money, time, or power leaving your life. Do it lovingly, do it kindly, without judgment. Do not expect everyone around you to agree, but use your own personal power to make your choices sound and based on intelligence. Now, some of you who are pure non-dualists will say, this is too earthly, Jesus. This is too worldly, Jesus. But we are speaking to all of you where you are. You are not yet ascended masters. You are not yet capable of manipulating the material world at your whim. And so we suggest practical advice for those of you that are on the path to mastery. Those of you that are masters, spiritual masters, you don't need to do anything. You are already in charge of your physical world, as all of you are, but most of you just are not aware of it. So we want to go into this new year supportively, suggesting that you look with intelligence and acuity at your life and ask yourself, where can I improve this situation kindly and gently without attacking myself or anybody else? We will return shortly. Oh, well, okay. Now, I have to say, I will be looking for a home that has, I'm in a rental place that has no wood stove and no alternative power. So I am very happy that I am not stuck on Salt Spring in the dark. And I know, Jan, you are away. So I guess we were guided away for this experience. Okay. Okay, so Yogesh, there was one of your questions answered there about the technology. That's on the list here. Okay, in these Jesus and Ananda and the law of attraction teachings, it is said that the universe is inclusive. is an inclusive, joyful expression of God, ever expanding, desires being the source of creation. One mind expressing itself, that we should learn the principles of creation and create our own reality, etc. And when I read A Course in Miracles, it speaks about the universe not being the will of God. And in the section titled Gifts of God, it goes on to say that this is a dream of fear and death within a larger dream of hopelessness, which will lead us further away from truth. And the only way is to forgive everything and return to oneness. I always get confused with this paradox, and justifiably so, I would say. There's definitely seeming to be a contradiction there. So let's see what Ananda has to say. We are with you again, dear ones, and of course, as usual, we thank you all for joining us here in your flesh bodies to commune with this information. We once again want you to give us permission to work with your energies as we converse with you here. As you all come together as a collective, you are building a very, very powerful grid of love energy around this planet, and we want to commend you. There are many of you that are beginning to channel. There are many of you that are rising up into a level of wisdom that is surprising for you. We are not surprised, of course. We know your potential. And those of you that have found these teachings have been contacted via the internet. At times, we would interfere and put one of our dear ones' videos front and center when you were searching for something. And lo and behold, you aligned with these teachings. And here you are years later, a completely different person. So we want to thank all of you for your dedication and for you showing up here and for you practicing and for you listening. That is the path to love. It is a path up out of fear into another level of consciousness that will be completely different than this one. Why is there a contradiction between some of our teachings and some of the Course teachings? Well, Course in Miracles is pure non-dualism. It is the ultimate that you are going for. But as you know, many of you caught in the physical realm, caught down in lower 3D thoughts and ideas and feelings and programming, you feel very, very far away from that ultimate goal. And this is so important that we are addressing in many of these question and answer periods, the queries that you have about what's really going on here. Here it says this and here you say that. But we have mentioned before that there will be a time that you will look back on some of the things that we said and that you will see that we were speaking in a language you understood about things you comprehended to lead you along a path towards something completely different. And that is really what you're seeing here between these two seemingly paradoxical belief systems. When you're caught in the 3D world, when you are in the Western society, we'll say, conditioned by commercials, conditioned by consumerism, conditioned by governments interfere, you must be contacted at that level with a voice that you will allow in your consciousness. And the law of attraction has been used as a stepping stone to lead you towards truth. But in a deeply materialistic society where you're taught that having this car or that house or this piece of jewelry is going to make you better, in a society where the foods are unhealthy and your education system is dumbing you down, we must come into your system, which has affected your mind, through a doorway that you voluntarily opened to us. And so the law of attraction was the philosophy that opened the door of many human beings' minds because they wanted less poverty, they wanted less scarcity, and they wanted more abundance. They could see that they were underperforming in the financial area, let us say. Many, many beings have come to spiritual practice via the law of attraction because they were poor and were sick of it. And they were willing to do something different to see if they could make their lives more materialistically comfortable. And that is perfect, because that was where they were. That was the vibration they were holding, and they needed to learn that if they were unhappy with their lives and the manifestations of those lives, that they had to change something about how they were feeling to bring about a shift. Now, a lot of beings who went directly to the law of attraction did not grasp the depth of unlearning that was required to change their feelings. There are a lot of beings who have gone around saying, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, but internally they're churning with resentment and fear and drama and condescension. So if they study the law of attraction, for example, they will see that what they're saying and what they're pursuing is not manifesting, because there's something going on inside. They're not downstream at all. They are swimming upstream all the time. They're always arguing with reality. And that doorway of the law of attraction was the doorway into them being willing to go inside and look at how they feel. What frequency are you emitting? Is it a frequency of abundance, or is it a frequency of poverty and scarcity? That we will say, not quite so spiritual doorway made many people go inside and ask the question, what frequency am I emitting? Oh my goodness, it really is not a very positive one. Once a being opens that door, then there are other doors that open. And so what you are seeing in these differing philosophies are steps along the pathway to pure non-dualism, which is the knowing that you are responsible for this whole thing, that this whole thing is a projection, that this whole thing is a dream of separation, and that death is not real, but it pervades this frequency of 3D materialism. There are many realms above this one that you are in. We do not reside in the realm of death and fear and scarcity, but many of you do. And many of you don't even realize how far away your sense of self is from complete abundance, complete joy, complete Ananda, bliss. Our dear one got an experience of Ananda, literally and figuratively, when she had her Kundalini awakening. And she realized that that frequency does not work in the 3D world. She was unable to work. She was walking along the streets in love with the salt breeze and the flowers, and in a completely different state of being. This industrialized and urbanized and heavy trafficked world that you live in is not of that frequency. And so it seems as if bliss and your world are completely incompatible. And in some ways they are. But many of you, as you go along this pathway towards non-dualism, are making different choices. You are moving to the country, or you have moved to the country. Many of you were guided there years ago. And that was us saying, you need to move to the country. It's going to be better for you there. As you go through your spiritual evolution, you need access to endless green spaces. You need to be able to sit out in your back garden and watch the birds. If you're not in a rural setting, do not berate yourself. Do not feel that we have abandoned you. But listen to your own stories about why you cannot move to a more rural place. Listen to those conditioning programs. I don't want to garden. My nails will get wrecked. I'll never get a job. I can't live with less money than I have now. These are all programs. They're just thoughts that come from the programs that have been inserted into your consciousness. But if you have those programs running, we cannot override them. You must experience the feeling of them. You must understand that the words that repetitively go through your head, if they're limiting and fear-inducing, are not coming from us. we will say, you can do anything you want. You're an amazing creator. You can go where you want to go and everything will open up to you there. But you must hold the frequency of love. You must hold the frequency of, I can do this. One of the things that this being is doing is demonstrating to many of you how an ordinary person's life can change if they stick with the teachings. This being was very poor. This being was very unhappy. This being was quite unhealthy in ways that she did not really realize, mostly emotional and psychological ways. This being was very disillusioned. This being was very alone. As she delved into these teachings, she began to feel differently, not only about the world, but about herself. And those changes felt good. And that expansion allowed her to have new experiences, which showed her limitations, which gave her the opportunity to expand. For example, she got a very, very challenging job on a remote ranch years ago, and everybody said she was mad to take it. But when she was there, the experiences, the courage that she got from years of doing A Course in Miracles allowed her to say yes to that job. Now, yes, it was a physical job. Yes, it was in the 3D material world. But what it showed her was her weaknesses, and it showed her her strengths, and it showed her her courage, and it showed her how important it was to discipline the mind, because every single person that said they could not do what she was doing could not do it because their imaginations would run away with them. And in that remote place, that was where this being saw the benefit of a disciplined mind. For on a dark and stormy night in the middle of nowhere, 5,000 feet above sea level, with a blizzard blowing, she was able to be fearless. She was able to see that the discipline of presence stopped her mind making up stories, and that the emotions she felt, everything was being generated from within her own consciousness. There was nobody else there except her own thoughts, and any feelings she had were being generated by the mind, whether it was a true story or an untrue story. And it was there that the shift, a major shift in consciousness, was made for her. Now, not all of you are going to be able to do that kind of experience, but we want you to know that you can do your version of that kind of experience. And the new year is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for that. The new year is a wonderful opportunity for you to look and say, well, I really have not addressed this issue in my life, and I am going to now, because it keeps coming up. I keep seeing that I've got an old pattern here. This is an old lower frequency pattern, and I am really, really aware of it now. I wasn't ready before, but maybe this year you are ready. So we have to start teaching you where you are. We have to give you opportunities where you are. We have to whisper in your ear words that you can hear, and they will always be in that 3D where you are kind of vibration, but we are always, always leading you towards non-duality. And so along that pathway, there are different channelers, there are different teachings, there are different experiences, there are different inspirations. And you may sign up to become a yoga teacher. You may be really inspired to do that. And in that teaching, you may face many of the challenges that you need to face to get you up to the next level of your spiritual evolution. You may decide to take a early education course because you want to teach little children. In that teaching program, you may see and remember all of the damaging things that were done to you as a child, and you may say, this is a really important thing for me not to learn. I don't want to get into this system. I don't want to teach children this. But you needed to see it to understand the next level for you, because each of you, of course, have your own blueprints. Each of you, of course, are living your own trajectory, and you came in at a certain frequency. And this generation, this incarnation is a powerful one that you all wanted to be in and involved in because of the shifts and changes that are coming. You wanted to experience it, and that is why you are here. You are here. So don't get caught up in saying that, well, there's the PhD course and then there's the kindergarten course. Which one is right? Well, of course, the kindergarten course is right if you're that age and that level of education. And the PhD course is right if you're in that level of education. One is not wrong or right. And that is the most important thing to realize, that there is judgment and comparison going on here. If you are looking at these different philosophies, if you are looking at these two things and saying, well, one must be right and one must be wrong, and of course, as Course in Miracles promoters, we see that you are hearing one thing from us sometimes and one thing from Jesus sometimes, and something a little different in the Course in Miracles, but this is a goal. This is an aspiration. So it's like a very, very fit person who's a triathlete saying, well, you need to do some more sit-ups there, but don't do what I'm doing because you're going to injure yourself. You're not going to be able to handle 26 miles on a bike and a 3-mile swim and a marathon. You can only walk around the block right now, but it doesn't mean that you can't get there. It doesn't mean that I am wrong in telling you only to walk around the block right now. That is what we are up to. We want you to be triathletes, spiritual triathletes, and you will be spiritual triathletes. So try not to get into the comparison thing. If you are comparing and contrasting and saying, but this, that is a part of your mind that's not going to serve you necessarily. Ask yourself, but where am I on that path? Am I stuck in 3D? Is that why I'm getting confused, because I'm looking too far along the path? We want you all to accept where you are today and review where you can improve the situation without judgment, without comparison, and just looking into your own world and saying, but where am I? I'm only walking I'm only walking around 1 block each night. I can do 2, I can do 3. Let me do that. Or I can walk around the block in the morning, a block at lunchtime, and a block at the end of the day. That's 3 times more exercise, 3 times more nature, 3 times more oxygen, 3 times more strength, 3 times more discipline. Where will that take you? Challenge yourselves this new year. Ask yourselves where you can up your game. But don't compare. Be really, really sure where you are on the path, where your challenges lie, where your fears lie, and work on those. We will return shortly. Okay. Let me just have a little sip of my tea. Look at my new mug, my Arizona mug. Okay. Is forgiveness just making excuses for bad behavior? I have thought that myself. I remember you, Tina, saying one time how some house guests didn't do the dishes and you did them anyway and used it as an opportunity for applying the forgiveness practice. As I live with both an adult child and an elderly mother, I am confronted with lots of opportunities to apply forgiveness. With my mom, it's a beautiful opportunity to heal the past. However, should I forgive and stay in my own lane, or should I let my feelings be known to heal wounds or behaviors? Thanks. Very, very good question. And I will let you know, you'll laugh at this, I did use that opportunity of people staying in my house not doing the dishes as a forgiveness practice. I looked at it and I asked myself, how did this happen? And do I want this to continue? So in the moment, I did the dishes, but I reflected upon the circumstances that I had created for myself. So instead of attacking them and saying they were bad, they didn't do their fair share of the housework, I looked, as I did the dishes, I literally looked inside and asked myself, why am I doing this? What is it in me that feels taken advantage of, or that is offering a home and that feeling of it not being appreciated? And after contemplation, I actually did give those people notice. And I decided that I was buying love. That was my forgiveness work. was going inside and realizing that I was trying to buy love by giving parts of myself away. And when I saw that, a penny dropped, and I saw that I was doing it in other parts of my life as well. So the form, because I went into that non-judgmental place of just looking at it and feeling it, I saw that the form was appearing around me in different relationships. I was doing it in 3 or 4 different places. I was giving away parts of myself to get approval, or I was not speaking my truth. And that was a very, very important transformation in my life. And it was difficult to deal with because I had to backpedal in things that I'd done with people. But because I didn't look at the form, just the form, and because I asked what's underneath this, and that's kind of what forgiveness allows you to do. It allows you to step back from attack and judgment of yourself or other people and go, what's actually happening here? Oh, I'm giving things away. Why? To get things. And it was a very, very important practice. So that's just my little take on that particular experience that you're referring to. So let's see what Jesus says about forgiveness and bad behavior. You are blessed beings indeed. And we start with that statement every single time because we want you to remember that you are blessed beings indeed. It is not something that we say just because we can't think of anything else to say. Forgiveness is your demonstration that you understand that attacking back is not going to solve the problem. It does not mean that you accept what somebody is doing and must accept it forever and ever more. Amen. That is not what forgiveness is about. Forgiveness is about understanding that attacking the manifestations that you have brought into being in front of you is not going to change the manifestations that are going to be in front of you. You are not addressing the cause, you are addressing the effect. The person living in your house doing things that's driving you crazy or taking advantage of you or not paying the rent or stealing your car or eating your food or physically abusing you or mentally or emotionally attacking you is there because it's a match to a part of your consciousness. And when you forgive that and do exactly what this being did, go inside and say, but what is beneath the form? It can be that you have a teaching that you must sacrifice yourself on behalf of others, and that will take you to heaven. That is not a true belief, but it is one that many of you hold. You may have a belief that if you say something that you will be attacked and it's frightening for you. This may have come from training in your society. For after all, if you argue with your teacher in school, you will be punished. Many, many years you have been in situations where if you spoke up, you would be punished. And so you must look at what's going on beneath the form of the behavior that you deem is unacceptable. If you have invited someone into your home that's taking advantage of you, for example, you must say, why did I do that? Well, I did that because they needed help. It's now 4 months later and they are not in a better position, and I have done what I am willing to offer over and above, and I don't want to do it anymore. You are allowed to not want to do things anymore when you have done your best to solve a situation. But what many of you are trained to do is to be codependent and subservient. What is codependency? It means that you feel you need others to be okay. And so you will do things to keep others in your life because you don't feel okay. That is usury. You are using others to make yourself feel better, but it doesn't work. If you do not appreciate and love yourself, it doesn't matter what those other beings do or be in your life, you will still feel the lack and you will project it onto them, because in codependent behavior, you are in the ego mind. It's not loving behavior. We always say, love yourself first. What does that mean? That means that you honor yourself. It doesn't mean you indulge yourself. That's a different thing. Eating all the cake you want, drinking all the beer you want. Honoring yourself means listening to your guidance. I would like to have a better job. I don't want to be a dishwasher anymore. I need to go back to school. I need to invest in myself. That is loving yourself. That same situation could be in a codependent relationship, could be, well, I'm only a dishwasher. I need your money because I don't earn enough money. So I'm going to get in a relationship with you so that I can have more money. That is a codependent, unloving relationship coming from the same situation. But if you honor yourself, go beneath the form. What does doing this job tell me? It tells me that I do not have very many marketable skills. Why? Well, I'm young. I haven't learned very much yet. So what do I need to do to change this form into a better form? When you're surrounded by beings taking advantage of you, when you're surrounded by obligations and responsibilities that are draining you, we don't want you to look at the form and attack it. We don't want you to say, well, you have to get out of my house. We want you to go beneath the form and say, why am I attracting this to me? When you attack, you mistake cause for effect. You're saying that person's making me feel bad. When you forgive and stay calm and peaceful and go inside and go beneath the form, you say, why am I attracting this? What is this thing that I'm attracting? Somebody using up my time. What's beneath that? Do I not value my time, or do I value them over me? What's going on here? Go beneath the form. This is why Buddhist teachings talk about the form, Maya, being the illusion. Because it is an illusory story. It is hiding the truth. You must go beneath the form. So if you are overweight, for example, or if you're suffering from some kind of sickness, if you keep focused on the form, you will miss the real cause, which is coming from you. This is why it's hard for people to heal. This is why it's hard for people to lose extra weight on their bodies, because they become so obsessed with the form, which is a low frequency end result of a distorted idea, that they are caught down in the same frequency that caused the problem. They are not at a higher frequency where forgiveness takes you. Forgiveness takes you up out of the battlefield, above the battlefield, and then you can say, these 3 or 4 relationships that I have a similar thing going on. But if you're down there attacking, if you're down there fighting, if you're down there blaming, if you're down there upset all the time, you cannot see the wood for the trees. And that's what that phrase means. You're too close. You're too involved in the form. However, what practicing forgiveness requires of you is that once you've seen what's really going on, it requires courage to change. You must change the belief in your mind that has led you into codependent relationships, subservient relationships, powerless situations. You must then go, what's that part of me that is afraid to learn something new? What's that part of me that's so riddled with financial fear that I cannot move forward in my life? What is that part of my consciousness that is so terrified that someone will be upset with me? Where is that coming from, and how can I change it? You can change these things, but not until you become aware of them. So for the person that feels that forgiveness is just excusing bad behavior, we ask you to practice your forgiveness with the person that's exhibiting bad behavior, taking advantage of you, stealing from you, eating your food, driving your car, stealing your partner, whatever it is. And then look around in your life and ask, is this frequency manifesting somewhere else? Because it will not only manifest in one place. You are a projector. It's going out from you in all directions, in all ways, all the time. And we guarantee that if you step back from judgment, step back from fear, step back from rage, go above the battleground with your forgiving heart and ask yourself, where else am I experiencing this frequency? And I am the common denominator. Let me not look at the form. Let me go beneath the form and ask, what is it in me that is inviting this in? Because I'm tired of it. Remember, the universe is reflecting back to you the parts of you that you are hiding from yourself, that you don't want to deal with, that are challenges, that are unconscious in you. Unconscious means you have put it down, you've put it away, you have put it somewhere else because you only want this part of yourself. The social face, the innocence. But there are the shadows. There is the part of the iceberg that is beneath the water. And that is where you hide the things that frighten you. And it can be as simple as, I don't like people being upset with me. That is going to cause you great problems in your life because people are everywhere and people will get upset with you unless you always do what they want. It doesn't matter if you do what they want 9 times out of 10. If 1 time out of 10 you do not do what they want, then they will get upset with you. So you are constantly walking on eggshells. If you have that belief that you're not allowed to upset somebody, then you will never live your own life, and you will get to your past life review and you will see that you kept living other people's lives for them. You kept doing what they wanted for fear of their anger, for fear of them saying you're a bad person. If you are not a bad person, which you know you're not, then you can say, actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually on a path towards creating a life that I want to live in. And you need to create a path to a life that you want to live in. But some of you have long and deeply entrenched behaviors and family patterns. And we want you to understand that that is going to be difficult for you to change in one go. We don't even suggest that you do it in one go, but we want you to ask these questions. Is there some way that I can take back a little bit of myself in a way that is not attacking? So, for example, if you have an elderly parent, for example, that you have invited to live with you and you are 100% responsible for their care, we would suggest, if that is draining you and that is overwhelming you, that you begin to do some research on respite care. And you will have that feeling, well, I am a bad child if I won't dedicate myself to looking after my parent. And we will say, actually, that's not true. That's just a belief that you have in your mind. And that belief is causing you to drain yourself and overextend yourself. That is not loving to you, and therefore it is not loving. There is a balanced way of doing this. We would say, look at your financial resources. Look at the financial resources of the person that you're caring for. Sit down in discussion and say, I actually can't keep doing this way. We need to look at alternatives. We can look at other family members that can come in and help, or other family members that can take you for a holiday once in a while, or other family members that can contribute in a financial way so that I can hire someone to come in and look after you for 2 afternoons a week. We must look for some way to mitigate this issue that I am suffering from. The other person may say to you, I don't want those changes. And you will say, well, I understand that. But there's 2 of us here and we must balance both of our needs. That is not an attack. That is not unforgiving or unloving. That is you looking after your own psychology, your own body, mind, health, wealth, and happiness. And you are allowed to do that. The teachings of suffering and sacrifice that were promoted and on which your society is built are not true. You are not required to do that. It is very important that you understand these principles. So whether you're in a marriage where you feel taken advantage of, or whether you're in a job that is under stimulating you, or whether you're living in a place that does not agree with you, you must go inside with a forgiving attitude and ask, why am I attracting this to myself? What part of me is underpowered here because I can see that I am not manifesting what it is that I want? That is what forgiveness allows you to do. It allows you to rise above the battlefield, above the form. And in that peaceful mind that is looking for a loving solution, you will find it. You will see what you are hiding from yourself. We will return shortly. Oh, I love him. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of tea. Chat amongst yourselves for a moment. With my attention focused on my own guidance system and how I feel, what I want to do, be, and have, I am doing what feels good, but also thinking, isn't it still possible to be selfish or lazy? I'm sensing there's a fine line here between listening to my own guidance and self-indulgence. Isn't it still possible to be selfish or lazy? Okay, let's ask Ananda about this. We're with you again, dear ones. Of course, it is possible to be selfish and lazy. It is a constant reassessment of your feedback system. But what we want you to understand is that most of you have been deeply conditioned in the sacrifice and suffering paradigm, especially those of you that are female, especially those of you that are a little older. And so if you have been conditioned in the suffering and sacrifice paradigm, which, as we say, is pervasive in your society, even the smallest choosing to do what you want will be felt as if it is indulgence, self-indulgent or selfish. The voice of the program will come up. And what we want to remind you of is that there are many, many beings living lives of quiet desperation because they have been indoctrinated into the suffering and sacrifice model. They have been educated in your education systems, taught to override their guidance. And so they're living and working in places and jobs, in marriages at times that they don't want to be in, that don't make them happy. But it's a sea that you are all swimming in. It is a programming system that is so pervasive, it is normal, but it is not natural. You have been domesticated, and you will see that there are videos on your Facebook. Our dear one will watch these things sometimes, where animals that have never been outside get given the opportunity to step on the grass for the first time or swim in water for the first time. And as the freedom givers open up the gates, you will see the look of fear on the animals' faces. You will see that they don't know how to interpret the environment. They might put a tentative paw or hoof or foot out. They look around for their compatriots and say, do you think this is safe? Do you think we can do this? What's happening? I don't know what all that green stuff is. And you will see for a brief moment that they are scared. They don't know what they're feeling, and they don't know what that environment is going to bring them. That is exactly where those of you that are indoctrinated into the suffering and sacrifice and overriding your guidance system mode is. You are at that doorway. You are putting those tentative first steps into a new environment, and it does not feel familiar, and it does not even feel good. It can look really, really intimidating. Freedom, for a mind that has been imprisoned, is extremely intimidating. What are you going to do with all that time? What are you going to do with all that space? But if you continue to watch those videos, what will you see? You will see the animals starting to step out on the grass. You will see them beginning to sniff the grass and perhaps roll in it. Those animals that love water will go for a swim and splash around, and you will see big fat cows and big fat pigs galloping and kicking up their heels, for they know the truth when they align with it. Now, of course, animals are not indoctrinated in the way that you are. They are generally trained through physical means of restriction. So put in a cage, put in a corral, put in a stable. So once those physical boundaries are removed, they have not gone through a psychological warfare program like you have. They can very quickly revert back to that freedom-seeking, sunlight-loving, fresh water-enjoying being. You have had a psychological war fought in your mind, in deep indoctrination, and you are not going to be able to bust out of your confinement as quickly as these animals can. Because the psychology of your society is training you constantly to do as you're told, to remain in a passive and powerless and victim modality, and it takes time to get over it. So we want you to know that you will hear that voice that says, well, if everybody did what they wanted, this society wouldn't go very well, would it? That's the voice that they want you to listen to, the designers of your society. But we tell you otherwise. Look at the real fruits of your society. What's happening to this planet? What's happening to everybody on this planet? Not just in your wealthy neighborhood, but what's happening to the children who are mining the cobalt for your cell phones? What's happening to the Chinese factory workers who are working to make the tinsel that you have on your Christmas tree? What is happening to those beings that are mining and digging for the diamonds that you have on your hand? You have been living in a lot of ignorance in the Western world, and we want you to look at the whole picture. It is like the alcoholic that looks at the first glass and says, well, that will be fun. But they don't look at the whole night playing out and their car being wrapped around a tree at 2 o'clock in the morning. You have to look at the whole picture, and that is what we want you to look at. We want you to look at the whole picture of what your society does, who pays the price, and where is that price paid. Many of you are not paying that price. A lot of you are paying the price of the paradigm of sacrifice and suffering because you feel guilty when you just go and buy yourself something nice for the first time in years. Or you feel guilty because you don't go to the Christmas dinner that you don't want to go to. You're a free being. You don't have to go. Christmas is a completely fabricated season. You don't have to go. You can do what you want. And when you make those first forays into freedom, you will hear the voice of the society saying, don't do that. That's too selfish. You're self-indulgent. You're going to cause a lot of trouble in this family if you begin to be honest and authentic. And that may be true. And it probably is true for most of you, that you will begin to rattle the cages of all of the family members that are used to you suffering and sacrificing yourself. For what? For a potential future in heaven, for being good. But this is where you get to experience what you want to experience, and you are guided by your guidance system here. You are guided. Your little guidance system says, but this is what you need to learn here in this incarnation. If you suffer and sacrifice yourself and do not follow this path that this passion is leading you along, you will not get the lessons that you need in this incarnation, and you will just have to do it all over again. And who will benefit from that? Well, the person that you are suffering and sacrificing for may benefit in the short term, but perhaps their lesson is to hear someone say no. Perhaps you have got an agreement with them that says, let's get into a really codependent relationship, and at some point I'm going to break free. And that means that we're both going to see what we need to learn, that you need to learn that you're strong enough to look after yourself, and I'm going to learn that I am not responsible for you. I am responsible for systems that I set up, but I am not eternally responsible. And what we're getting at here is that if you have created a dependency, don't just walk out of the door and let that person fall, but inform them that you're not going to keep doing this and you have to look for other solutions, that you are going to go back to school, that you are going to save up to move to that place that you've always wanted to live in. Because if you don't do it now, and if you don't do it for you, it's not going to happen. And most of you on this physical world do not realize this until you hit your 40s, your 50s, or your 60s, and you realize that you have a finite amount of time to experience what you want to experience here. And that is a midlife crisis. When you say, I can't keep doing what I've been doing, I need to break free. We just tell you, give those around you that have become dependent on you a little heads up. Decide if you are being selfish or self-centered, or whether you are actually, for the first time in your life, beginning to listen to your guidance system and doing what it is that you would like to do, regardless of what other people think. We know that it is hard. We know how deeply programmed you are to do as you're told. But freedom, creativity, and self-expression are your purposes here, whether or not you've been taught that. And it is loving to listen to that inner guidance. And we will tell you that when you listen to that inner guidance and you follow that path that is leading you towards the light, you will be of much greater benefit than just to the one or two people who are telling you that you are being selfish or self-centered. But listen to your guidance. Are you being inspired to re-educate yourself? Are you being inspired to become fitter and healthier? Are you being inspired to volunteer in some particular part of society? It is easy in the West, when there are comfortable couches and entertainment systems and abundance of food, to think, well, for a year or two of just doing what I want, I feel as if I am lacking. And that may very well be the point that we will bring an idea in for you to expand yourself. But for many of you that have lived in a life of suffering and sacrifice, it's okay to have a year or two where you are doing just what you want. And it may seem frivolous, it may seem superficial, but we guarantee if you stay on this path, we will guide you to the right place. We will guide you to your purpose, and we will guide you to a fulfilling and service-focused life that is full of joy and that does not require suffering or sacrifice at all. We will return shortly. Oh, dear. Oh, okay. I need to have a little drink here. Okay. In various books I have read over the past few months, I keep seeing a recurring theme, where it is spoken of that Christ is Pleiadian in nature, and that much of the source of not only Yeshua's incarnational journey here, but Christ's energy in itself was and is Pleiadian. I'm curious how these two go in union with one another, how our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters in the Pleiades helped facilitate this alongside the role they play in the Christ energy and the awakening of the planet. Very nice question. Okay, let's see what Jesus says. We are here to assist you in your awakening process, all of us, from Jesus, from Ananda, from Archon, from many, many beings. We are here to assist you in your awakening process. Your society separated all of us. Your society, through its programming, decided on a particular pattern that worked to disempower the people, to frighten the people, and to manipulate people into doing certain things. And it was a very well-designed plan. That plan deeply embedded itself in your minds, in your society, and in your heart, and in your beliefs. And it is now that these other potential explanations are coming into your realm of being. You will notice that this being did not channel extraterrestrials until there was a foundation, a platform on which trust and understanding and some level of development had been precipitated. And that was because your minds could not handle it. There were beings that were channeling extraterrestrials. There were beings that were channeling Christ consciousness. There were beings that were channeling Yeshua, Ananda. All of these different names were to appease and to explain different things to different minds that were capable of different levels of belief. What is happening now is that the blending of your earthly experience and the extraterrestrial beings that have long connected to this planet and connected to many of the great teachers on this planet, that blending is happening now. So we want you to understand that as Jesus, I am here to relieve you of the misconceptions that you have had about me and about Christianity and about love and about the teachings that have pervaded your planet. And we are leading you into a galactic federation where ascended master teachers from many, many different places come together. My teachings 2,000 years ago in the physical world, when I was in a body, when I was Jesus, were coming from master teachers from other places. They were not coming from what you consider God in the Judeo-Christian sense. So I was teaching elevated teachings from your galactic brothers and sisters, and continue to do. I was a channel for that information, just as this being is a channel for that information. So we don't want you to get caught up on who's from where and who's been where. You've all been incarnated in many places and times, many dimensions, many planets, many different kinds of bodies, male, female, extraterrestrial, inner earth beings. You've been so many things. Do not try and limit where and what Christ consciousness is. Christ consciousness is a frequency that pervades everything. Some beings can tap into it and manifest it and put words and actions to it. Others cannot. It does not mean anything other than it is there for those that can access it. And if that being is an extraterrestrial and is of high enough frequency, they too can access that information, that band of knowledge, if you will. It is like tuning into a radio station. So when I was in the physical realm on the earth plane so many years ago, I was able to tune into that radio station because of my practice, which was to choose love, to step back from judgment, to practice forgiveness, to see everybody as equally valuable, whether you were a prostitute or a priest. And that is the path up the ladder, the frequency ladder to Christ consciousness, and other beings are able to go up that ladder too, to Christ consciousness. And there are entire societies on other planets that have all chosen that path into the higher frequencies. So you, over the next few decades, are going to encounter many beings that are tuned in to Christ consciousness. It is not a physical person. It is a frequency of love that is available to all. And that is what we are seeking to guide you towards, is knowing that you are just stuck in a frequency that is not serving your planet, that is not serving you, and that there are many, many teachers, not just me. Why do I hesitate to say that I am Pleiadian or not? Because it will not serve you. I am a being that came into physical manifestation on the earth plane many times. And not just on the earth plane. I had incarnations on other planets before the earth incarnation. It was one of the things that set me up for communication with highly evolved extraterrestrial teachers. It does not serve anyone to compartmentalize or to lay a value judgment on a particular star system or a particular galaxy or a particular culture. It is in egalitarianism that you will find your freedom. It is in listening to these higher principles that you will find your alignment with truth. And it is there that you will tap into the teachings that are going to benefit all of you on this earth plane at this time. So yes, there are associations with different star systems, and this being is beginning to channel many, many different extraterrestrial beings who have the same teachings as their mandate. And that is really what we want you to focus on. That highly evolved, loving beings come in all shapes and sizes, all forms from many locations, but they are all tapping into the same frequency that is love. And that is what is going to serve you over the next years as you encounter, channel, meet, become involved with your extraterrestrial brothers and sisters. Okay, I'm sure that answered the question, but okay, I'm tired. Okay, we've got one more question, I think. Oh, excuse me. Most non-dualistic teachers vehemently oppose the mind. They say one should just drop, dissolve the mind and enter in the heart, and that mind is the biggest illusion there is. And at the same time, we have at least 3 to 4 well-established and very popular disciplines on earth, like Raja Yoga, Buddhism, Shavik teachings are now ACIM, which emphasize so much on the mind, its study, training, and discipline. To a human mind, these two appear very contradictory to each other. So what is the fundamental difference between both, and how does it work? I think we kind of covered it a little bit in that other question, but let's see about the mind. See what Ananda says. We're with you again, dear ones. Your mind, we're talking about the thinking mind, the 3D mind, the one that's worried about the rent, the one that's thinking about the car and whether it needs an oil change, the one that's wondering what your bottom looks like in these trousers, the one that wonders what your family member is doing that's always so annoying and you wish that they wouldn't do whatever it is they're doing. That is the discursive mind, the chattering mind, the monkey mind. That is the one that doesn't serve you. That is the one that keeps you down in the battlefield. Higher mind is a very different thing. It is not constantly worried about the material world. It is consciousness experiencing. So both could be considered mind. One is monkey mind, discursive mind, ego mind. One is higher mind. So it is about defining which mind you are residing in. Well, behind the monkey mind, there is consciousness observing. But if you don't train the mind, the monkey mind, the discursive mind, if you don't stop feeding it the food that it wants, then it continues on its nattery, chattery journey. How do you feed it? Well, you go down those rabbit holes. You tell the story that this sibling is wrong and this sibling shouldn't do that and that person shouldn't do that and that politician's bad and is going to lead your country into disaster and the disaster is going to be affecting you and you're not going to be able to get a job. That's the rabbit hole of the discursive mind, going down, down, down into the battlefield and blame and shame and fear. If you do not understand that going down the rabbit hole and perpetuating the story through listening to the story, through watching those movies in your mind and believing it and getting all the visceral feedback and the stress of that story, that is you feeding it. That is you empowering that thought system. If you aren't trained out of that, that's what the ego mind will do. Because you're trained into doing that. You're trained into, through your commercial television structures, through your violent video games, through your violent sports and competitive training in your school systems, you are deeply indoctrinated into the discursive ego mind, which is my competition. That is the basic fundamental separation mentality. If I don't get it first, you're going to take it from me and I will suffer. So there's a basic combativeness there that you are deeply, deeply trained in. And that's why the minds of the untrained in A Course in Miracles, for example, will stick to the subject that is our favorite. If you don't take your mind back, that's what you're going to do. It's the default setting here. It's what you're trained into. It's the getting a gold star for being top of the class. That means I'm better than the other people in the class. And that's the subtle message behind the gold star in your assessment programs in your school. It is the getting sent to the principal's office because you dared to argue with the teacher and say, actually, I don't think that's true. Sent out of the room, punished, humiliated, shamed. That is the training program. Don't say anything. Don't do that. And so when you're trained in that program, you will have all of these stories that the discursive monkey mind will want to take you down because it's been trained into you. But behind that is another level of consciousness which can observe, which can say, you're very upset right now. Well, who is that observing you getting upset about something? And you've all done this now, where you're eating a pound of butter and there's a voice in your head that says, why are you doing that? There's the part of your mind that's deciding to eat a pound of butter or drink a gallon of beer or whatever it is that you decide to do. And there is that part of your consciousness that says, that's not going to work. It's not going to be very good for us in the long run. What is going on there? There's a split mind. And that is what this teaching is about. It's about the reunification of the mind so that you are connected to higher mind. The split mind is the ego and spirit competing in that sense. Although spirit doesn't compete with ego, ego competes with itself and everybody else. Spirit merely says, choose this, do this, go here, go there. It's very quiet and it's very calm. It never bullies you. It doesn't do anything like that. But the ego is berating, shouting, limiting, attacking. Very, very different frequencies of mind. We're saying, stop feeding this mind, go to this mind through the practice of forgiveness, which is what? Not going down the rabbit hole, not going down into the story, not going down into the attack, the judgment, the separation, the fear. That is what forgiveness does. It allows you to step above the battleground and not go down the rabbit hole and feed that thought system more and more food and getting your body and energy all involved in that sin that you think has been committed against you. So mind has to be defined. Higher mind, consciousness, beingness, the power of now. When you are in the now moment experiencing, you are pure consciousness, not judging anything. That is what forgiveness brings you. It brings the ability to be in pure experience, observing what you are experiencing, and it is peaceful, it is calm, it can be inspiring, it can be beautiful, but there are many levels between the dissolution of the ego mind and achieving unity consciousness. And you are each on different levels, different landings, stairways that are going up that path. And forgiveness is the way that you get there, because as long as you're in judgment, you're saying that shouldn't happen and you shouldn't be the way you are. You're in the ego's mind, the chattering mind. So we hope that answers the question. We want to thank you all for being with us today. We want to thank you all for challenging your training programs. We want you to, today, when you come off this session, we would like you to turn your computers off. We would like you to turn your phones off if you haven't already done so. And we would like you to meditate for 10 minutes. We would like you to sit in your chairs, in your benches, in your cars, wherever you're listening to this. And we would like you to take 10 minutes, eyes closed, and sit in the frequency that we have cultivated with you here today. We are going to do some upgrades and we're going to do some energy work with you. So please comply if you are willing. We are Ananda, we are your guides and teachers, and we are upping our game as well. We want you to know that we can affect your body-mind complexes if you give us permission. And after this wonderful, wonderful conversation, we can give you some upgrades. So please turn your computers off once this conversation is over, and we will join you in your energy systems for some simple upgrades that will assist you in your New Year's resolutions. We love you very much, and we will speak to you again soon. Okay. All right, my loves. What do I need to tell you? Okay, I am working on a couple of things just to plant these seeds in your mind and give you some heads up. I will be sending out notifications once these things have been solidified. I am going to be offering some mentoring programs with Jesus and Ananda. I'm going to have initially 8 places, and they will be, 6 places, and they will be 8-week sessions. So once every 2 weeks, we will meet for 2 hours, and we will discuss and work through whatever it is that you're experiencing. There will be a charge for this. I will put a price up for you when I send this information out. And we will also be doing a masterclass. Carol Morgan and I will be co-hosting a masterclass where we will probably have 10 people who have been working on this work for 2 or 3 years, who've shown their dedication. And that will also be 2 hours probably, and that will be the Sundays that we're not doing live streaming. So that will be done through sort of an interview process. So if you feel that you would like to sign up for a masterclass, and it would be on Zoom where all 10 of us would be on the screen at the same time, and there would be channeling and dialogue and questions, again, for people who have been doing the work for 2 or 3 years and feel that they can handle it, that particular format. So I'm working on pricing for those things, and that information will come to you via email, and it'll be out in the new year. So I'm working on that right now. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and have a great meditation. Bye.